Hey, everybody. This is Lauren DeLisa Coleman bringing you another episode of the Inside series right here at film.io. We have our very last interview for the wonderful Venice Film Festival, and I can't think of a better way to be able to kind of close this out with the filmmaker behind this upcoming HBO series that I am so excited to bring to you now. And it's really fitting that we do this at this point in the festival because it's already won awards and et cetera. So let's just jump right into it. I want you to welcome Erik Matti to the Inside series right here at film.io. What's going on, Erik? Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
All the way in Asia.
Audience. Hi, Lauren.
And he has already mentioned to me before we got started that you're in quarantine once again as of the last several days. So this is also giving him something to do as well to hopefully take your mind off of that, as if you don't already have enough future projects to work on. So again, Erik, welcome. Please start by giving us the title of this fabulous series and the synopsis, because this is a lot.
Okay. First of all, we premiered On the Job, The Missing 8 in Venice as a film. It's a 3-hour and 28-minute film that we are showing in HBO as a series, together with a first installment that we did in 2013, which we remastered into 2 episodes, brought in some deleted scenes, to comprise 6 episodes in HBO Go in Asia, and soon it's going to release in Europe and North America through HBO Max.
Hindi dapat itumba. Kukuha kami ng preso.
Hinihinala ng otoridad na hired killer ni Manong sangkot sa pamamaril.
You are now rumored to be the mastermind of this crime syndicate.
Konektado siya lahat eh.
Hintay ka na lang. Lalabas din ang totoo. Desperate moves, pare.
Super exciting. A couple of things there, though, Erik. You're a little humble because my understanding is this is the only Asian film that was shown during Venice Film Festival out of all the films, within this category. And you not only killed it with that, but also just managed to happen to bring home the Volpe Cup, which is for Best Actor, right?
Yes. And we're up against some really, really strong talent.
Definitely. So how is John feeling about that? John is the lead actor, Arcelia, right? I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Who does a fantastic job. Was he surprised, or what was his kind of reaction behind the scenes, not like official?
I was making him guilty because we were together getting the visa to Italy, and he was having second thoughts because of the quarantine we're having now with coming to Italy. Eventually, he decided. He's claustrophobic. He decided, I'm not going to Italy. And I was making him feel guilty that, you're going to miss out on things, etc. And the day that I was told I needed to get a video message from him, because we already knew he won the Volpe Cup, I was telling him, see what you did? I told you so. You should have been here. And he was so upset. About himself and for deciding not to come to Venice, and yes, he was so proud to have gotten the award, and I think looking at the lineup, it's really a testament of the kind of talent that was brought into it, not just John, but the ensemble performance of the film as well.
Absolutely.
And I think everyone should be proud of it.
So it really is just amazing. I had the opportunity to watch it. Everybody who watches the series knows I am a, gangster crime thriller lover, but this is a lot more, right? So let's kind of get into this because, we're kind of at the almost finish line, right? Where there's awards and HBO and everything, but this was a long haul in the making. It is a crime thriller, if you will, but it has a lot more, I guess, in terms of political messaging, human psychology, so much more around it. So could you kind of delve a little bit into what brought you to this project and then kind of the making of it? Because like you said, this is going back to 2013, where it was supposed to first be just like kind of this web kind of series, which turned into this whole full-blown thing. It's inspired by true events. You are, Filipino, based in the Philippines. So let's start from there. How did you kind of come to this, Erik?
Well, okay, I go back to 2013 when we first made the film. And then years later, which is probably 4 years ago, we decided to make the next installment. And coming from the first one, where the idea is quite simple, not too simple. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm simplifying it, but the idea of prisoners being brought out of prison to kill, and then the police are having a hard time looking for the killers because they're already back in prison.
Right,
I think
right.
that's the original premise of it. Now,
And driven by politicians. The killers are not coming, the prisoners are not coming out to kill just on their own. It's a whole political syndicate. Yeah. So go on.
Yeah. And then when we got to coming up with the next installment, my writer, Michiko Yamamoto, who's also my partner, we wanted to go beyond than just the basic premise of it. We wanted to push it a little further to talk about other things. And eventually we decided to go with journalism.
Yes.
We started writing this around 2016. And it was around the time the Cambridge Analytica issue came out. And connected to that, we were made like a testing ground before it was applied to Trump. So it made sense to go into journalism as a kind of topic that we want to explore regarding on the job. So now, for this particular installment, we not only have the prisoners being brought out of prison to kill, the assassination story, or the politician as gangster story, which is like my motif generally for the kind of film and series that you saw, where it harks back to American gangster Hollywood films. But together with that, there's a strong dissection of journalism, fake news, how they're manipulated by politicians as well, how truth could be skewed depending on who wants which story to be told. So there's a lot to process, and I think what's great about turning it into a series, because the pandemic actually brought us there. All our cinemas are closed here in the Philippines, and we have in our hands a full 3-hour, 28-minute film that we can show in the cinemas.
Right.
So eventually, I thought of converting it into a series, and with that many angle to a story, I think a series allows the viewers to really immerse themselves, give them time to let the story resonate with them per episode, rather than being forced to completely comprehend a 3-hour, 28-minute film.
Very true. And I think that because some of the elements are just being put together in the minds of certain viewers, you're right, it gives them an opportunity to digest. Somebody like myself who comes from the media world, originally, it's kind of like, okay, second nature to understand a lot of these things and what you can write about, what you can't write about, and questioning why you can't write about certain things. That's kind of like, second nature to me. But to be able to see it like this and how it plays into this whole story is just really fascinating. And I think, yes, I would like that time, the space in between, to kind of just sit with it a minute if it weren't something that was maybe more organic to me. But even so, just to be able to have those breaks to kind of just let it digest and remember,
yes,
this character's doing this and that, because this isn't just like a straight up like gangster shoot 'em up film. Like I said, it is more cerebral. So you need this time. I'm so excited for you to have this, be broadcast on HBO. Tell me a little bit about how that deal kind of came about, because you said you decided to be able to create this whole wonderful work, and then I'm sure you didn't just walk into HBO Asia and be like, I have like the hot project, like let's do a deal. Like, how did it come about?
Well, it started with us finishing the project after a 3-year shoot. Looking at the series, it's pretty much like an ensemble piece. So it went to 3 years of shooting, even if we're only shy of 60-day shoot, because primarily of putting together all the actors in one schedule each time we go into a shoot was really difficult. And when we were about to finish it, the lockdown happened. We actually shot the last 4 days of the film immediately after the lockdown opened up a bit around July or August last year. And we finished the last 4 shooting days, and I was editing it. And I knew I didn't want to compress the story into a more convenient 2-hour film cut. And as I was editing it, I saw that it was really kind of long, 3 hours and 28. And of course, when it was time for me to show the edit to my producers, I didn't want them sitting there in the screening room saying, what are we gonna do with this length of film? I want them to really have a good viewing experience, knowing even if they know it's 3 hours and 28. So we came up with a presentation. The presentation shows, okay, I'm telling you now, this is 3 hours and 28 minutes. So all of them were, oh my God, what have you done?
Right.
We can't show that, yeah? So, and then I showed, no, wait, there's a second option. If the cinemas open up, I have figured out a way to cut the film, the 3 hours and 28, into 2 films. And that would be easier to digest for the audience in the cinemas, and most especially for the cinema distributors to say, okay, yeah, I think we can have a space for that. But the third option is, and I haven't figured it out yet during that time, but I knew I have something there. I said I couldn't convert it into a series. And during that time, I was doing a project for HBO, which is a horror series that they're producing for Southeast Asia. And I was shooting an episode for them. And so it was just immediately an easy connection between me presenting the film to HBO. And immediately, we sent them the material maybe in 2 weeks or 1 week. They immediately responded and said, we love it, we want it. And the additional thing that closed the deal really was the Venice Film Festival.
Right.
When we announced that, cool. Yes, yeah. So it made it easy to close the deal.
That's just great for you. I mean, I think especially after you see that many years of work put into a project, once it starts to like gain momentum, you're like, okay, it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the language in the film, because what I noticed, and I kind of made my own series watching this. I could stop at 47 minutes and come back and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But consistently, I just thought it was interesting that they'll bounce between the native language and English. Is this the norm in the Philippines? Did you use this solely for the film, or what's kind of the story with that? Because I was like, there's a ton of English in this.
Yeah, we are. I think the second language of the Philippines is really English. Everyone speaks English. You can hardly find someone who doesn't understand English, a word of English. They may not be. Not all Filipinos could complete grammatically right sentences of English, but everyone can speak and communicate with anyone English speaking and can be understood. So most of our films will really have the native language, which is in the Philippines, it's Tagalog,
Right.
or Filipino, and coupled with English words. In the Philippines, it's called Taglish,
Okay.
Tagalog English. So
Got
Taglish.
it.
And most of the educated people speak that way in Taglish.
Okay.
And in the more middle class parts of the Philippines, there are even children who can't speak the native language and would speak more English than the native language. So that's how it is here.
Because of course, you have all the subtitles, but many times you don't necessarily need them because you're like, oh, they're speaking English. Will this
Yes.
remain? Do you know when the film comes to this market here in the US? Will it still remain exactly as it is with the English subtitles, etc.?
Yes, it will be the same. It will have its English subtitles in the Tagalog English language that you saw in the series. And yes, it's coming maybe in 2 or 3 months.
Right. And already, well, I think it is airing there in Asia, what, this month? No, next month?
No, it's airing already. The day after the awards night in Venice, HBO released it immediately, the first
Great.
3 episodes. And right now we're on episode 4. So this Saturday, we're showing episode 5, and next Saturday, episode 6.
So did you time it just for the quarantine, Eric, or what?
No.
You literally have a captive audience, right? for all this. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts of making this though, right? Especially over a 3-year period. What were some of the most challenging things aside from the pandemic that you found when you were directing this, bringing the cast together, all of that?
I think the scale of the film is really, really difficult to mount, primarily because we're dealing with the prison sector. In the story, we're involving the prison story, there's the police story, there's the journalist story, and there's the politician story. So there's 4 different sectors that have their own particular stories that we're traversing all throughout the series. And what's difficult is it requires a huge number of characters together in one scene. And I think aesthetically, the reason why there's so many singular tracking shots in the film, it's because it's to show that we didn't cheat any of the number of characters that you saw in the scene, that they are themselves present in all the scenes. And that took us a long time to put that together, primarily because in the Philippines, most of the actors, the bread and butter is really TV, and film is really like a side project. And casting for this film, most of them are on TV. And usually you'd cast 8 of the ones in the scene, but the 2 others couldn't make it. So you need to cancel the shoot.
No.
Those are the difficult ones. The next one is, of course, dealing with the big set pieces of the film. There's a rally, there's a riot in prison that involves hundreds of extras. There's the car chase of going through sugarcane fields, the sugarcane field that we need to, we paid for the entire plot of land so that we could.
No way. Crazy. So now you're a sugarcane field owner as well, in addition to everything else. Oh my gosh. So yeah, just the logistics of that are insane. It's funny you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you about particularly the prison scenes. Are the prisons really like that in the Philippines? And how did you, I don't know, either recapture that or whatever? Because as you're, especially with those shots where you're like kind of going through the aisles, if you can even call them that, on the prison. First of all, the shots are insane. But secondly, you're kind of like, is that really how it is there? Because it's kind of like dorm style, but not really. And there's a ton of people in there, right? Is that really the story? Because that would be deterrent enough to not do anything shady, like not going to the prison in the Philippines. But yet it's a kind of camaraderie, and all they're doing is wearing like t-shirts that say detainee. Like, it's kind of the weird scenarios of all kinds of worlds. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yes. If you look at the kind of prison we have in the first 2 episodes, which was set in the National Penitentiary, which is more urban, and also when we went to episodes 3 to 6, where we go into the rural, more countryside prison setup, one thing in common with both prison setups is that it's too congested. There's just too many prisoners, that all the spaces you have can be converted into sleeping areas. So when I was doing the research for the prison system, and we were going into the National Penitentiary, the smaller city jail or the provincial jail, it makes it look surreal, but at the same time, it amazes me as a filmmaker. You go into the toilets, and the toilet is there, but when you look up, the ceiling part has been converted into sleeping spaces. So you have people taking a bath down there, and then you have people resting up there or sleeping because there's no space.
It's crazy.
And,
it's really like pandemonium. And you don't get the sense that it's a cell, or if you do, it's a massive one, because like there's tons of people all together and all kinds of various activities, card playing, talking, bunk beds. It's really unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And the lower your position is in the scheme of the prison setup, you belong to the floor. So all the floor areas are converted into sleeping spaces. And if you don't have the backup of the protection of somebody higher up, you belong to the floor. And then the better your position is, the higher you get, in the better your beds become, and the better your meals become. And one more thing, because the prison system is so congested, there's too many prisoners, that the number of guards are not enough to protect the entire jail. So what they do is they assign the prisoners to form their own small policing teams to protect each other's cell. So that's where gangs are born.
This book that I'm reading right now about India, and when one of the characters goes to a prison in India, very similar. It's like the more senior prisoners then become the guards, which is a whole nother world.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about feedback on this, which I don't know, it might be too early in the game for you to have received this yet. Probably won't get much feedback from the prison community, but what about the media community there and the political community there in the Philippines? Any kind of either distancing, like, this is just fictional, this is not how, anything that's ever happened, or anything like, we have experienced things like this before, maybe from, any media members. I was just kind of curious about that as I watched it.
Yeah, before I go there, the first fear, if you call it, the first worry I had screening in Venice was, number one, I've never shown it to a real audience in a darkened room in a real cinema before that time. And my first, I was so scared that, one, the context of the film might be too Filipino, and most of the foreign audiences may not be able to relate to it. And I was surprised that everyone connected with the insights on journalism, on politics, even how the hierarchy of the status of a prisoner and the richer strata of society. Now, in terms of the feedback here in the Philippines, well, prior to showing it in Venice, I did a small screening with journalist friends, some of which I used as research and resource persons for the film. And they all enjoyed it, except at the part where there's corruption in journalism. A lot of them kind of not wanting to believe that it can happen, most especially when one of the characters gave up one of their sources in favor of his desperation to just go after a bigger fish. That one, it made it very hard for them to accept that a journalist would give up a source. And they would always say, at that point in the film, it became a movie. The other parts of journalism that you tackled was very real. We've never seen something as in-depth as this tackled on film. But that part where he gave up his source, that one we don't believe. And of course, I just smiled at it. But going home, me and my writer and also my wife, Michiko, we were talking, and of course, they don't want an out-and-out corrupt journalist to be involved in a story. But that part in the story is part of our research, and that happens. You give up a source in favor of a bigger story.
I think that around the world, probably for the most part, media likes to think of itself as some kind of chaste and pure scenario, and it just by virtue of the fact that it's run by humans with agendas and corporations, how could it be, right? And even if you're doing it just, in your bedroom or whatever, your opinion somehow seeps into things. So it's a nice idea about objective scenarios and all that. But, this is something which I think is going to continue to be proven over time, that it is very much subjective, very, very much.
Yeah, and yeah, I think the grayness, the way all our films, most of my films, we barely do black or white scenarios or black or white characters. They're usually gray characters. No matter how evil a person is, you always try and get to understand their humanity one way or the other, without really painting them with so much judgment that it becomes like a 2D cardboard character. And I think that's what we're proud about, the kind of treatment that we gave most of the characters here in the film. Even the craziest, even the most evil people have a strong humanity to them. That you sort of, it's not to make them more noble, but it's really just to understand them, understand what makes them decide on things, make decisions, and in favor of whether it's for the good or for the bad of things.
So let's talk about, you referenced your partner, the fabulous Michiko, who has written this. How is that you guys really have to be partners, huh? Because you dealt with quarantine together. You're like deep into this film, together. You were really meant to be together. Talk to me a little bit about that creative process. Did she show you pages along the way and say, what do you think? Or does she what's kind of her system and your system with it? Does she wait until it's more kind of drawn out to be able to show you something that's larger? How's that kind of play between the both of you? I'm curious.
Lauren, before she went into writing most of my films, I used to believe that I am a good writer. But when I met her, I realized I could only be a good director. And being a writer takes a different kind of discipline. that I am admitting to myself that, okay, I can do it. I'll direct the film, but you have to write it for me. And for this particular film, we were talking about it in Venice because once you see it on the big screen, a lot of things come back to you. The process of making it, the process of developing it. And I was telling her, remember there's this draft about this and this. And because it was a 2-year process, because of the research that went through it, went with writing it, she forgot some of the drafts that we've had. That looking at it now, I realized there were drafts that had longer parts of different characters. We used to have, in the original draft, we used to also have the TV national network as part of the stories. And eventually, that was taken out.
Okay.
Because it became a little more convoluted and too much to take in. What happened was for this one, the first one, the first 2 episodes in the series, which is the original On the Job of 2013, I wrote the script for that, and then she revised it in order for it to be shootable. For this particular film, she wrote it herself. And imagine the amount of research she needs to look at for this one. I've looked at, our process is, she doesn't show me pages. We start with her asking me, let's sit down. This is the story I have in mind. What do you think? And then I put on the table the kind of film that I want to make. I say, this is where I want to go. This is where I want to go. In the beginning for On the Job, we picked 3 topics to talk about for On the Job. One is gambling, how gambling works with the government in order for it to be, even if it's illegal, to be legitimized. 2, there's the medical angle where the black market medicines from China are brought in here by the government, and they build private companies and sell it to hospitals, public hospitals, and eventually their companies earn from it, these government officials.
Wow.
And then the third one was journalism. It was only when Cambridge Analytica became such a big thing that we eventually decided, okay, I think we should go with journalism. So we kept the 2 other ideas for whenever we can shoot it. And journalism was when we started working on it. And then from there, she starts writing it. The next thing she'll show me, she doesn't show me a storyline. She shows me an outline. The scenes, complete with the description, the characters, etc. And then I generally I don't make a comment specifically. I make a comment as a whole, in general. Is this the kind of movie that I thought I was going to do? And then we talk about it. And then right after that, because I just want to make sure that more than the written material, that it's the kind of movie that I want to see on screen. So it's not just a matter of, oh, it's a really good story. It's not that. It's also the kind of filmmaking that can go into it. Is it something that I can be challenged with? Is it something that excites me? And then right after that, I let her go and she writes the script entirely.
Wow.
And then the next thing we'll see is I will read the script on a scene per scene with my staff. And from there, when I do the scene per scene, when I read it as a paper, I can't make suggestions. But when I do a scene per scene with my staff and I say, this is the kind of costume I want, this is the kind of life.
Okay,
and then I don't think this scene is going to work. I think there has to be so I only get to comment on it and she makes the next draft when I do the scene per scene.
It's just such a process, like Eric. I just listening to you makes you appreciate it even more, because you're just like, wow, this was a lot of work. You know what I mean? Even though it was very cool work and something that you're into and a story that, should be told, it's a lot of work, just really, really amazing, given all the work. What's maybe like, I don't know, I guess the most valuable tip that you learned from or while making this that you would want to share with other filmmakers, whether it is shoot as much as you want and know that it can always be a series, or something else, which maybe you could have, shared with Scorsese as well for that project with De Niro. There was a lot of debate, of course, about whether that should have been, the full time or, broken down to a series as well. But no, but seriously, what would you say you learned maybe that you like surprised you or something, or you thought was very valuable?
I think making this film was a reaction. The reason why it looked like this, and some of it may be, to some may look at it as overboard, the filmmaking of it. I think all throughout the 3 years, I was avoiding, you know how it is in the last 5 years, because of the films moving into the small screen, that everything seemed to look the same way. They're cut the same way. It looks like a whole committee decided on it, that this is how a film should look like. 2 cuts, 3 cuts.
Right. Go ahead. I'm like super excited about thinking about you as you're saying this, thinking about how you did do that, and you'll have like split screens, and it almost looks like some shots like from back in the day in the 70s and stuff.
Yeah,
love it,
because it's the resistance for it to be just like everyone else. That caters to what a showrunner, caters to what a bigger studio that's gonna tell you how it should be scored or how the sound should look like. Even the use of music and the sparse use of scoring is really a reaction to that. That any normal series would never use music that way. So beyond the series, even when I was thinking of doing it as a film, I wanted it to be to look like an individually unique, fresh kind of film. That we don't usually see on the rest of the streamers. They all look the same, or the tone or the mood is always like that. The darker it is, but that one also looks like the other one. So I wanted the film to have a life of its own that's unlike any other that's out there. And I think if there's any advice or tip, it's really the lesson I was also learning as I was shooting it is I never wanted to just, because nowadays films are shot on 2 cameras, and a lot of times it becomes a crutch. You don't imagine cutting the film anymore in your mind, because then you have the safety of another shot. So you can just let the scene go by and then figure things out on edit. This time around, the challenge I posed myself was, I'm not gonna do a shot that I don't think I'm gonna need on the editing. I'm not just gonna do a dump truck. That's what we call it, a dump truck, where you have 5, 6 cameras rolling at the same time and hope to God your editor is good and then can tell the story based on the shots. This one, okay, I want to start with a long tracking shot and I want to end with the next shot of a close-up of the boy. And that's it. That's the scene. That gives your editor no other choice. Your editor cannot tell the story for you, because you yourself has dictated by use of your material that this is all you can work with. And you can't mess with it too much, because that's all you have. So it forces him to tell the story based on how you want to tell the story. And so it makes it unique. and me, I was forced to really do my homework, to really plan ahead. There's this scene, right, of the journalist, Sisoy, and the mayor, and they were talking right after the press conference, and he was tinkering with this mini kingdom in his office, right? And that one was carefully planned on when will they be seen together, when will they be seen alone, separate from each other, when will the camera move and when will the camera not move, because I want things to be deliberate. And if there's any tip, you'll have to make your filmmaking more deliberate and more in control of your storytelling.
Very, very cool tip, Eric. So anything else that you might like to add before we close?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we're proud of, and it's probably the first and only time we were able to afford this for a Filipino content, is really the soundtrack. I think I could only dream of a soundtrack like this. And coming from the idea of the film becoming like a homage to American gangster films, the use of standards by Tom Jones, Frank Sinatra, The Animals, really lends itself the feeling even more of gangster films, and it helped a lot, and it cost a lot to put it there, but yeah, I was able to afford it because HBO wanted it, got it for us. Yeah.
I'm really glad that you added that part, because I did notice, and I guess particularly because the lyrics are written out on screen, right? Because it's subtitled, that a lot of what's being said is either like playing with the scene or deepening the scene, or, it's just kind of a comical kind of, but in a dark way, twist on a scene that you're like, you just experience it in a different way. So yes.
Yeah, it adds a layer to it. It doesn't pour an emotion, but it adds a layer to it.
Very, very true. Well, you can see that so much thought put into it really, really paid off. So Eric, congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
And continued success. And I'm sure you will be, glued to whatever the critics say here as well in the US when it hits HBO Max here in the States. And you guys don't miss it, because it will be at some point in the fall. I want to say that HBO has said like the end of October, but double check me on this. It is called On the Job, and you don't want to miss it for sure. So Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you, and I hope North America enjoys On the Job, the series, just like when we released the first one there a few years back. So
I hope
thank
so
you,
as
Lauren.
well. Absolutely. And you guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed not only this episode of the Inside series, but all that we've brought you around the Venice Film Festival. And we are going to keep doing more right here on film.io. And I am Lauren DeLisa Coleman.